we started. We accomplished our purpose of generating a reliable distribution map for both their historical and current distribution. It told us that there had been significant range losses in the lower 48. Wolverines once occurred throughout the Sierra Nevada of California. They don't anymore. They have gone extinct there. They've also gone extinct in Colorado and portions of Utah. So there have been a shrinkage of their range northward. But the primary habitat that they're associated with is this snow cover, which had not changed since historical times. So unlike a lot of species that get in trouble because their habitat has been affected, what appeared to be the primary habitat for wolverines hadn't been affected, and yet their range had shrunk and their populations had declined. And we concluded that it wasn't a matter of habitat loss, it was a matter of human persecution. Back in the days when pioneers were settling the West and trappers were primarily the ones up in the high mountains, wolverines were considered a pest and actually considered vermin and dangerous animals that the world was better off without. And so a lot of the trappers would intentionally trap them and kill them, shoot them on sight. And another thing they did was, and one of the reasons they did that was because wolverines will run a trapper's trap line and eat the animals out of the traps he's caught. They weren't interested in preserving wolverines, they were interested in getting rid of them. Wolverines also had a bad habit of breaking into cabins and eating food and soiling the inside of the cabin with their musk and urine. And so they were considered noxious animals that needed to be eliminated. So we think those range losses are attributable entirely to human activities and this excess killing that was going on in the early days. As far as we can tell, the most important habitat element to a wolverine are snowy areas. And so that led us to hypothesize that what's really important to wolverines is this spring snow cover and not any other sort of habitat conditions. That led to the next part of the study, which was to project spring snow cover into the future using the climatic models that others have produced and predicting what would happen to the spatial extent of spring snow cover if global warming continues on its current trend. And what we learned from that was that although wolverine habitat wouldn't disappear in the western mountains in the next 100 years, it would decline considerably, and available habitat would shrink in area and become more and more isolated. So we'd have greater fragmentation of the habitat, meaning greater distances between habitat patches, which makes it harder for wolverines to connect with each other, for genes to flow from one part of the population to the other. And so they're going to lose habitat, but at the same time they're going to lose connectivity, which is just as important for a species like this that occurs at very low densities and needs to be able to interact with other members of the population in order to successfully reproduce. So we're actually studying a population that is in the process of reclaiming its former range, and we don't know whether it's going to continue expanding further southward, or if this could even be a failed experiment and they may shrink back toward the north. They may not become established and persist for any great length of time here. They've probably been here 10 or 15 years altogether currently. It's too expensive to monitor the population with live trapping, but with these remote camera and hair snagging devices we can deploy throughout the North Cascades and do that relatively cheaply and easily. Over time we can get long-term data sets on the trends in this population and determine whether it's increasing, decreasing, or stable. Now the wolverine has been proposed for listing as threatened throughout the contiguous U.S. by the Fish and Wildlife Service. There'll be a final decision at the end of this summer. And in large part, their decision is going to be based on this program of research that we've done on wolverines. So if we had not begun this research and developed the kind of basic ecological information that we have about where they were historically, where they are currently, what is their primary habitat, what's the status of that habitat now and into the future, we'd be back where we were 10 years ago, wondering whether or not we need to be worried about this species.
Visit the Natural Enquirer website for more information. There you can learn more about explaining your results and sharing them with others.